Welcome back, guys, once again to the Nerd Rage Reacts. I am Ryan Anderson, and joining me in this reaction is...
Brad Learman.
Hey, man. So for this reaction, we're going to be reacting to...
Venom.
The trailer. The good, the bad, and if you should be excited for this film. So, right off the bat, what have you seen so far with Venom, and what was your first thought before we got onto this trailer today?
The character design looks good.
Okay.
I'm hoping Sony doesn't screw this up.
We'll see.
Because their track record with the Amazing Spider-Man is not all that great.
Yeah.
And their track record is sort of iffy with superhero movies as of late too.
Yeah. I agree.
From what I can see from this trailer, it looks okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some of Venom's dialogue and some of Eddie Brock's dialogue seems a little weird.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because it's out of context because of the trailer.
I think so, yeah.
But it just seems a little off.
Yeah.
And then, like, there's this, like, when I think it's when another character and then Brock are infected with the symbiote.
Yeah.
Like, it has this, like, shaky cam thing where it's like the portrayal of Venom is on his body, but it's just kind of like over him. It looks weird.
Okay. So one thing at a time here.
It looks weird.
Okay, so quickly, you're talking about the MRI room where he's kind of phasing in and out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That just looks weird.
So we'll get to that. Okay, so let's start off as we always like to do. What did you love about this trailer?
First off, that they are supposedly portraying him as an anti-hero versus a villain.
Yeah. It's a tough sell, but I think it's working.
It's doable. Yeah. We haven't seen Woody Harrelson's character yet.
Yeah, which is interesting because when you look at the trailer, that you can do the little drop down and it says like Riz Ahmed and Tom Hardy and Michelle Williams, and I think it even says what's her name, who used to be on SNL. That they're all in it, but Woody Harrelson's character isn't in it. So yeah, I think they are setting up something there, but keep going.
Let's see. We see a big montage of different stuff that Eddie Brock doesn't fully control at the moment, and then it's actually really cool, like the transition between Eddie Brock's face and the full transformation to Venom. Like somehow, like he'll like remove half of the face and reveal Eddie Brock, and then he'll put it back on. That's kind of cool.
I was gonna say that was probably what I loved the most about it was just.
It's also cool, like the size difference with Eddie Brock and then with Venom. Like Venom's like 7 feet tall.
So
it's crazy.
Okay, so I want to break some of that stuff down too. So first on the whole size thing, that's something I love, but it's weird because that doesn't remind me specifically of the comics, because I think of Eddie Brock as being this bigger guy already, and then the suit kind of being almost just like a natural skin that just kind of goes on top of it, and then it bulks out when there's reason for it. So I see why, but I'm wondering, and going back to your point before that, even if this is an intentional choice, because there are a couple details in here that maybe some of the fans or casual listeners and observers may not have picked up on, is the fact that, first of all, we don't see the spider emblem on his chest. And the reason I'm sure that it was made was because this Venom characterization has not interacted with Spider-Man, which is why the spider was on there and why some of those abilities are in the comics but not showcased here. We don't see him swinging through the city or anything like that. He's very much just like almost like hopping Prowler with symbiotic abilities to create weapons and that sort of thing.
Because the black symbiote hasn't. Either because he hasn't met him yet, or the black symbiote hasn't interacted with Peter Parker.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. I think that was an intentional choice because
like it hasn't been worn by Peter Parker, thus the symbiote doesn't really know how to do all that stuff.
You can't adapt to abilities that you haven't, been a part of yet. So I get that. I can understand that there are some people very upset because it's like Peter Parker has to interact with Venom before Venom goes to Eddie Brock, and I get that. I do. But you have to understand the situation that we're in here. Knowing that's the case, I think what we've got here is a very well done CGI version of Venom. I mean, listening to all of the complaints that came out of Spider-Man 3, where we got Venom, I think that this is a more accurate representation than what we got there. Now, to be fair, I mean, at least from that, we got Spider-Man giving it off to Eddie in the course of that same movie. And while there was a lot going on in that film, you're just getting a different take of Venom in this one. But I still like the fact that, like Brad said, there's that anti-hero aspect to it. But I think the real focus of this movie is really about duality. And I think that's what, aside from the fact that I guess Tom Hardy signed on to this project because his kids wanted to see him be a superhero. I think that I've heard that was like the big drawing factor for him. Because I think after doing Bane, I didn't think, I'm getting that feeling that he wasn't really interested in those sorts of projects anymore. But he did this because, it was because his kids were encouraging him to. And kudos to him for, giving another superhero take. In this case, I think what's interesting about his characterization is trying to focus on the duality. Like, even though I have personal hangups, I guess getting now into what we didn't like, is the fact that he seems almost intentionally meek, like oh, I don't know, I don't want to cause any trouble, guys. I don't want to. And then like then he venoms out, and all of a sudden like the beast takes over essentially. But I think that's a conscious decision that works on a more cinematic scale because it gives you that sense of duality between this guy that just wants to kind of do the right thing and get the scoop and all that stuff. And then the creature that wants to kind of be the more assertive force and presence that's trying to get him to, get shit done, if you will. So do you like that? I mean, or is this kind of more into what you didn't like as well?
I didn't mind the whole, meeker, the whole approach to a meeker Eddie Brock.
Okay.
Maybe he's just, not. I mean, it's Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy's not like physically imposing. So to speak.
He can be when he wants to be.
But yeah,
I was gonna say if you watch him in like Bronson or he can be a force.
Well, he worked out.
Yeah, he did.
That. This is Eddie Brock. He didn't have to do much. But I think Eddie Brock will probably evolve into the more confident, more arrogant Eddie Brock that we're probably customary with.
Yeah. And I think that will be the case. Like, really, so much of Sony is riding on the back of this movie. And I hate to say that because I will confidently defend Amazing Spider-Man 2. I like Spider-Man 1. I like Spider-Man 3. I didn't really like Spider-Man 2. And yes, I know a lot of people will give me a lot of clucks for that one. There's a couple scenes that just kind of but it's still a good film. It's fine. But aside from Amazing Spider-Man 1 being the one that I didn't really gravitate towards, like, I don't think that Sony's really done a bad, and I mean really like bad. Like, the funny thing with all the Spider-Man films is, they don't compare them next to like Catwoman or Jonah Hex or any of those movies that are legitimately bad movies.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I realize more budget and all that stuff, but I feel like at least what they were attempting to do in those movies, they did a better job than most bad films would do, whether you love them or hate them. So in the case of this, like, I love the fact that Sony is trying so hard to do something great with what they have left. Because, yes, they had to get, or at least share Spider-Man, and it creates this kind of out of one universe into another experience where technically Peter could be popping into this movie. And honestly, if out of all of this, the end result is Peter shows up at the very end and then like the symbiote gets on him or whatever, or something to that effect. I think that would be great. Or just to see them interact, even though that's probably not going to happen, I still love the idea that they're at least trying to get Venom right. And once they do, hopefully they do, they will move on to try and make bigger projects in this universe. But if nothing else, that's why I want to support this film, because I think Sony is really trying to do something with this and make it great. Even though they're in this really tough position, it would be like having the rights to Fantastic Four, but you only get one of the Fantastic Four, and you have to make a movie with just that one character. It'd be really hard, especially if everyone else has, or if another studio has the rights to the rest of the characters. So I commend them for trying to do something big. Am I expecting this to be Infinity War? No. Am I expecting this to be Iron Man 1? No. Am I expecting this to be The Dark Knight? No. I think this is probably just going to be a good, isolated film that's a combination of a character study, trying to figure out, what makes Eddie Brock / Venom tick, while also giving us a crazy CGI third act. So, I guess maybe like a lesser version of Wonder Woman, if that makes sense. It'll probably just be like one of those kind of films where it's just, build,
yep,
and then big CGI nonsense at the end.
Ooh. And then we got to talk about the reveal of the other symbiote that we did see.
Yes. Yeah. So, let's talk about, usually we would get into like spoilers and all that stuff, but this is a trailer. What was like the big Easter eggy or reveal kind of thing from you for this trailer?
Well, they did show off another symbiote, Riot.
It is Riot, yes.
Riot's he's like a symbiote.
Yeah.
That typically fashions blades and whatnot.
As we clearly saw in this trailer, and that looks so badass.
Wow,
I love that.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
I actually like that part, yeah.
Just to pull off that effect alone was impressive. I mean, just because you've got to, he slices off the tops of those computers or whatever it is, and like just to pull that off in a physical aspect must have been a tricky thing to synchronize it all the way that they did. But that's a little bit of, talking about movie magic and all that stuff. But I really want to see what they do. Do you think that that's going to be kind of his big scene, or do you think that there's more to expect from that character as the film progresses?
I think probably he's probably going to like show up somewhere halfway in the movie, and then, he'll come up big in the last part of it.
Yeah. So from what I've heard, because it started off by being, there's only going to be one symbiote, and then it became like, there's going to be a family of symbiotes. But the interesting thing is that I had not heard from anybody that Riot was going to be a part of this film. So seeing him, I thought that was fantastic. And do you like the idea that Riz Ahmed is supposed to be playing him?
Yeah, I can get on board with that. I'm just kind of mad that they didn't show Carnage. I'm hoping that Woody Harrelson
you're one step ahead
Cassidy.
of me. Yep.
I hope he's Cassidy. I hope they tease it somewhere.
Yeah.
Or like maybe it's like at like the end, like pre-credits, end credits, something like that.
See, yeah, and that's what's so interesting is like I bring up Batman v Superman as I do many, many times, and I apologize because it's just a good example for me on this. But in this case, like we've talked about in the trailers of Batman v Superman, the fact that they just came right out and showed you Doomsday, and how a lot of people thought that was a bad PR move for them because they should have kept it as a roar or something off in the distance that you just hear rather than see, so that you can kind of envision what it's going to be before it's revealed in the movie itself. Here, I think they should have teased that Carnage was going to be a part of the film, because Carnage is such a big deal to so many people, especially in comic book fandom and all that, that I don't think everyone, aside from the fact that, news articles says, Riot is now in the Venom film, check it out. I don't think everyone immediately goes, I remember Riot because of blah, 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 or any of the other symbiotes. It's really Venom, Carnage, and I guess maybe anti-Venom or some of those might crop up, but those are the two big hitters. So they should have shown either Woody Harrelson or a tease of some sort of red Carnage-like symbiote. So I don't know how they're going to put Woody Harrelson into this film, but I'm almost kind of hoping that there's another trailer or teaser clip that comes out before this movie shows and just gives us an idea of like what to expect without showing us everything, if that makes sense. I mean, what's interesting to me, talking about these reveals too, is I think we got to see Scream as one of the other symbiotes. I think she is the that I want to say paramedic or whatever that gets hit with the symbiote. I think it's like middle of the trailer. She slices that guy's neck open and gets pretty.
Oh yeah, like she shoots like needles out of her back.
Yeah, and then the needles out of the back.
Tiny little projectiles. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one is Michelle Lee, who plays that. Who is that actress? But she's playing Donna Diego, who is Scream in the comics. So, is she going to be that like bright yellow kind of color with the red hair and all that stuff? Probably not.
I don't know. Maybe that's not a symbiote.
No, it's definitely a symbiote because first.
Oh yeah, did she like fashion blades from her hands too?
Oh yeah, her hand turns into like a big spike like in Terminator 2. So yeah, she has symbiotic abilities. Yeah.
I don't know which one she's gonna be.
No, well, I mean, if she's playing Donna Diego, that's who Scream is in the comics. So we're probably seeing Scream right there. I'm just wondering if they're going to show her in that yellow symbiote context. You know what I mean? Or if they're just going to say, oh, well, these are all, like, hypothetically speaking, the symbiote is black and white, and whoever it touches has that black and white palette, but they're just, differently fashioned depending on if they're, like, male or female or that sort of thing. But if it were me, I'd say just go full force with it. Make it whatever color, just because that's the best way you can keep a comic book accurate. Plus, if every symbiote in the movie is black and white, then it's not going to be as big a reveal or as big a pop when you actually get to see like Carnage or whatever. Because Carnage not being red, that's like a cinema sin right there, But yeah, I think that's really cool just to see her being Scream. We've got Riot that's been revealed. If you actually look in the trailer, it could just be the lighting or whatever, but they have the symbiote that's in there, and it's kind of like in this wavy kind of pattern or whatever, and there like a yellow light shines on it, so it's possible that could be one of the others. It's hard to say because most of these characters emanate from the Lethal Protector storyline, but I think the other one that yellow one would be Phage. I could be wrong on that name, but it's there's just so many, honestly. I just want to see, because if you slow it down, you can actually see at one point in the trailer, there's a person being strapped to a chair and about to be hit with the symbiote, and he's like screaming out, and it's got reddish looking hair. But the thing is, it's not Woody Harrelson. So is that person going to become our Cletus Cassidy? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, because I always look for the red hair. That's kind of that obvious clue that there might be a Cletus Cassidy in this movie. But yeah, there's a lot going on in this trailer, especially if you start to like really pick it apart and look at the finer details. But I guess, just kind of boil it down, simply put, do you think this movie's going to be good?
I'm optimistic.
Okay. Any other thoughts with it, or just leaving it optimistic?
I just hope that Sony doesn't ruin another Spider-Man character.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And hopefully they learned something from Marvel when, they were allowed to borrow Spider-Man and help produce, or they were involved with the Spider-Man movie that they were involved with Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully they learned some stuff from Marvel.
Yeah, I think they they've learned some things. I mean, I still think at the end of the day, Sony's going to Sony.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily mean that as a bad thing, because, again, I said I like a lot of Sony's films, as long as that movie isn't Ghostbusters. But I got to keep making digs at that movie. Poor Paul Feig. He tried. But anyways, I really think that there's potential with this movie. I see a lot of things that could make comic book fans happy. I see a lot of things that could make comic book fans not so happy. But ultimately, whether it works for everybody or not, my grade as of right now is probably about a B minus, about a C plus, with the possibility that it could be a B plus movie. But that doesn't mean it's bad. That's better than average. So at this point, with our millions of films about superheroes, it'll be nice to just have someone who is genuinely not a superhero. So a little mix up is always good now and then. So I'm happy for it. I think that's it. Any other thoughts there, Brad?
I don't really have anything else to add.
Hey, well then, go and see this movie. Go check it out. It'll be a little bit, but it'll be here soon enough. I think that's it. So for you guys, thank you for listening in. Again, we're going to try and keep doing more short form content if we can. We heard you guys say that you want more, so here's more. That being said, please go and check us out at all of our social media contacts, whether it's you can do follow Brad on Instagram there with his what is it again?
It's ominous_drawer.
There you go. You can follow us on our Twitter, the Nerd Rage Pod, on Facebook. Pretty much anywhere podcasts are, you can find us, including the fact that we're now on Spotify and iHeartRadio and all these other services now, which big thank you to those guys, because I was not sure that we were going to make the credentials for that. I thought they were going to be like, you have to have like 10,000 downloads per episode or whatever. And I'm like, well, we're in the hundreds, so we're good with that. But we'd always like more. But again, thank you guys for listening to this episode. Please go and support us wherever you can on any of our social media channels. And if you want to be on the show, you want to give a reaction, you want to talk to us about pretty much anything, on camera, off camera, whatever you want to do, hit us up at nerdragepod@gmail.com, and we will talk to you about whatever you want to talk about. So for the Nerd Rage Podcast, I have been Ryan Anderson.
And I'm Brad Lerman.
And we will see you guys another time.